Welcome to Season 3 of the Knack 4 Business Podcast. Over 350 episodes strong, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit with fresh insights, networking gems, and creative strategies that elevate your game.
From an audience perspective, have you ever felt that your presentations are more like monologues than meaningful conversations? What if you could transform them into powerful experiences that truly connect with your audience? That's exactly what Meredith specializes in, helping business leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs turn stiff, one-sided presentations into engaging, trust-building conversations. With a background in theater direction and improv instruction, Meredith brings a unique approach that empowers you to simplify your message, amplify your presence, and build deeper trust with your audience. Our guest today is Meredith Grundei from Grundei Coaching. She is a strategic communication partner and experienced director with a knack for transforming how tech leaders, executives, and conscious entrepreneurs communicate. Drawing from her experience as a theater director and improv instructor at Second City, Meredith empowers her clients to simplify their message, amplify their presence, and build genuine trust with their audiences. Her client list includes industry giants like Amazon AWS, Google, Pfizer, Panasonic, and visionary founders seeking to step out from behind the slides and create real impact. Meredith is also co-author of writing the Brave Healer's Guide for World Changers, set to launch May 20th, 2025. And she will be hosting the Unscripted Retreat from October 16th to 19th, 2025 in Denver, Colorado. A returning guest to the Knack for Business podcast, she first shared her insights in Season 1, Episode 65, titled Confidence, Credibility Through Awesome Speaking Superpowers. Welcome back. Always a pleasure to have you here. What's your favorite quote or saying, ma'am?
Thank you. I often quote Allen Ginsberg and say, notice what you notice. Notice what's going on in your body. Notice what's present. Speak from that space.
So that's a profound question. Why do business leaders struggle with the ability to speak and speak well to their audience? What's the problem with the connection?
Well, I feel like there's multiple things that could be going on. One is oftentimes leaders are busy humans that are often working from the balls of their feet or always on the balls of their feet, if you will. So preparation may not be something that they really have a lot of time for. I also feel that there is a way that one presents that is modeled again and again within a particular company culture. It might feel uncomfortable to break the mold. I also feel like people don't get the proper tools they need. It's not something that perhaps their company values as much as another thing. And so maybe soft skills is not something that they feel they need to invest in, or they're just not the skills that person received early on. Public speaking is a very difficult thing for a lot of people. I don't know if it's the number one fear over death, but it definitely scares people quite a bit.
I think I'll take the public speaking part. Death is final chapter.
Yes. I think Seinfeld had in one of the shows, he said the person reading the eulogy would rather be in the casket.
That's what it said.
Thank you.
I got a great question that I really love the answer to, but it's going to catch you off guard.
Bring it on.
This year's word in our inbox is authenticity.
Okay.
And that is fine as far as it goes. But I also know from being one of the most authentic people I've ever met that they've been trying to talk me out of it since grade 4. So what is the legitimate ground rules or guardrails to what I would call real authenticity, but also staying within the corporate culture?
Ooh, I love that question. First of all those people who are trying to tell you not to be the authentic human that you are, shame on them. I would say for me, my definition of authenticity is bringing your true spirit forward. I believe that when you give yourself permission to bring your true spirit forward, even in the corporate setting, people are going to trust you more because they're going to see that you're standing in integrity. What they see is what they're going to get. You're not trying to pitch or sell them. You just genuinely are bringing your true heart into the space and your personality. No one else is like you. So why hide it? Why try to sound like everybody else? It's exhausting and it's boring.
Funny you should mention that unique element. It's almost like a unicorn moment, right? We're all our own unicorns.
Yeah.
Having worked inside a corporate space, and Wayne's been in that same box too, or even a certain industry, you don't even have to be corporate. There is lingo. There is a way to short form acronyms, or you say these set of words and it means a host of things. But to the mere mortals outside your universe, not so much so. How do you break out of that corporate speak element?
Well, I always tell my clients to think about who's the person in the room with the least amount of knowledge. Even if you're speaking to a bunch of your peers, there could be a potential customer that's sitting in the audience. That's really your job to get to know who's going to be present. And so often I will say, focus your message to that person. What do they know already? What don't they know? What do they need to know? And how are you going to convey your information to them so they understand it? If your goal is to get people to remember you and talk about the content after the fact, you need to be clear with them. Acronyms and company jargon is going to alienate that person with the least amount of knowledge. You being clear, clarity is kindness to the rest of your audience and to that person is not going to annoy people. It's going to just, they're probably not even going to think anything of it if you're not using the acronym. So I say you've got to simplify, you've got to be clear. If you're going to use the acronym, tell us what it means first. Help that person out that's sitting in that room because you never know. That person could potentially be working for your company or could be a potential customer. Or the newbie on the team who's sitting there going like, I don't understand any of what these people, I've been that person. I worked insurance for 2 years. It was a temp job. And I remember they took me out to lunch and I felt like I was listening to a whole nother language. It was so uncomfortable. Do you really want people to feel that way?
So the three things that bother me the most are war, violence, and people who read their slides word for word. Those are the three, and they aren't in order. How do you help people not break that cardinal rule? Help me.
Practice. Practice, and they need structure. And quite often they use their slide deck as their structure, which is the opposite direction you should be going in. You should be identifying your audience. You should be figuring out what it is that you want to say to that audience, what your objectives are, what do they need to know when they leave that room. And then once you're really clear about that, you can start to bring your visuals in and ask the question, what visuals here are going to best support that message? But if you're not clear about all of those other things, the slides are just your crutch and we're bored with it.
So when you're conveying a message, let's say you're reformatting it so the audience understands it. If you're in a certain profession, certain keywords, you understand the true meaning of the word mandate, right? It has certain implications depending on the industry you're in. How do you take something that is somewhat foreign to someone in the audience, but make it relatable at the same time, not lose them, or it becomes so vague that, can you see it? How do you make that snowflake pop, but at the same time, the snowbank is not the whole message?
Well, I think you need to find the comparisons. You need to find the anecdotal stories that are going to help the people in the audience understand what either that product, technology, service, whatever it is that you're sharing with them so that they can easily remember it and then share it with another person. So if they can't remember specifically how the product works or that service works, they can at least say, it's kind of like a Japanese tea ceremony because someone shared the story about the Japanese tea ceremony and how that relates to an AI product, right? So two totally different things, but there's a way that we can go about making it relatable enough to people who have common experiences so that they can leave and at least remember that piece of it and get curious.
In your bio, you mentioned improv in Second City. Tell me about how improv affected you and how it's helped you train and coach.
Thank you for that question. I discovered improv many moons ago. It was an incredible collaboration tool that I was able to make up stuff in collaboration with other people fairly quickly. I love this idea of yes and in communication, the way it helped me listen better, the way it helped me understand failure and that failure can be a gift, and how when we speak from a place of truth, that is oftentimes where the humor emerges from. And so that tool alone has just taught me limitless, what's the word I'm looking for? We might have to back up on this. It's given me limitless lessons. That was the word I was looking for. Teaching it too, they say when you teach something, it helps to solidify those learnings. I found such delight going into companies and teaching improv. That's where it all started. How I even became a speaking coach was I would go into these companies and teach improv as a tool for communication, for building trust quickly amongst teams, using the yes and for ideation. Then I would meet the executive who's like, I got this high stakes presentation coming up. You have this theater background. Could you help me out? And that's where that started. Now I use it to help speakers get comfortably uncomfortable. I use it as a tool to help them speak extemporaneously, to not freak out when their tech goes out. Even improv has structure, that if you're really clear about what that structure is and what your roadmap is, that if something happens, you can get back on track pretty easily. Sadly, a lot of people think about improv as being off the cuff so that they sound more authentic, but quite often what they don't have is the structure behind it.
4 years ago, we had a convergence of a global pandemic and Zoom. And we then did years and years of talking heads. You understand body language and you understand how to use body language when the square is only 2 by 2. Tell me about that.
Oh boy, if you're sitting back in your chair and your lighting is terrible, I still see people ghosting in and out of their virtual backgrounds. It's really hard to feel present with you. It just is. Like I'm having a real difficult time figuring out if you care or not. So what I highly encourage people to do is it's not too late because it's not going away. It's just get great lighting, get great sound is so important. Have great sound. Sit up straight in your chair. I always say sit at the edge of your seat if you can't stand. Have both feet on the floor. Don't get too cozy. Have your camera on. If company culture is that the cameras can be off, but you're somebody who's like, I need the cameras on, then you've got to be able to vocalize the rules of engagement in your room. Those things all matter.
I'm going to have to do a podcast with my feet in the air, see how that works out.
So I would pay attention to that.
I'd pay attention to it too. A little discombobulation might add spice to the flow of it. This takes me to the next question. When we're talking, we get comfortable with a certain format, right? We get acclimatized, whether we're working in the office space or the storefront. With slides, sometimes it becomes the centerpiece and it isn't the centerpiece. It's an aid. How do you get a person not use that as a crutch, not hide behind the slide? You can't see the talking head. It's like the Wizard of Oz, but you see the large apparatus working. How do you get the person coming from behind to the front, get themselves into the front? How do you get their mindset spun that way?
That's a great question. I feel like there's a lot there. One thing is I always tell people not to use a podium if it's there, if you can ask to not have a podium on the stage. I work with a lot of people in tech, so they have to sometimes show demos from the stage. So that would be the only time I'd say you can get behind the podium is so that you can show that demo. Again, think of your visuals. And when I think about visuals, I try to get people to stop thinking just purely on slides as a visual. There are many other things that you can engage people with. You could bring on a prop, a flip chart. You could have the slides up just at the beginning and then bring them down. You don't have to have a slide deck up all the time. I always encourage people to really think about how do you want to be seen? And if you were in the shoes of your audience, looking back at that presentation, at yourself giving that presentation, what would keep you engaged? So to me, it's more about how are you using the visuals to properly engage rather than how are you using the visuals to share information? If you're sharing data, how are you sharing that with your audience so that you're not overwhelming them? What is the absolute need to know? So I really get people to just really think about intentionality and what the overall objective is. Now, when it comes to fear of speaking, oftentimes what I see is people will move in the world of theater. Downstage is closest to the audience, upstage is furthest from the audience. So what I see when nerves kick in is people will move either one of two places. Upstage, closer to the visuals, to where they feel comfortable, or they'll turn their back to the audience, and or they'll gravitate towards the podium. So I will always encourage people when I'm rehearsing with them or practicing with them to stand closest to the audience and then be intentional about when you move and why you're moving.
Sounds like a rock star moment, out front and center. They want to see the singer and the moves, right?
It's the strongest point on stage. So if you're hovering near that podium, you're telling us something.
Tell them to do an Elvis moment.
Do an Elvis moment. It'd be refreshing.
If your big career-changing presentation is Friday, you may actually be pushed. But if you've got a year, you've just got a new job, or you think you're going to be getting a new job, tell me about tools like community theater, Toastmasters, reading books out loud. What do you like so that a year from now, they're better, more accomplished speakers?
Ooh, I like that question a lot. First of all, the first thing I would start with is your mindset. If you have an I can't attitude, or you keep saying to yourself, I really don't like public speaking, or it terrifies me, or I don't value it, then that's going to get in your way. So I would first start looking at your mindset. Because if you really, truly want to grow in your career, you're going to have to be a good speaker. Then the second piece that I would do is I would just start practicing. I love the reading from a book out loud, putting yourself on camera. There's tools like Yoodli, YOODLI.ai, which is an AI coach specifically for public speakers. And also, if you are looking for a job, there is an interview component where you can put in interview questions and actually in real time with an AI coach, go through those questions, and there's role play on there as well. So that's an incredible tool. Start sharing your pitch, your story. Share it to somebody that you trust first, then share it to somebody else, and then again and again. You have to keep putting yourself out there and using your voice. It's a muscle. Join an improv class. I have one. You could join. Those are the ways that you're going to get better. It's just like any gym membership. The more you show up, the stronger you're going to get. But when you slack, you're going to feel it.
What is the biggest core difference between storytelling and a sales pitch?
Well, I feel like there's a component of storytelling in a sales pitch. And I feel like a good sales pitch has an emotional connect. That's why we like story, because there's emotional connect. And oftentimes sales pitches, that's also a trap too, where we don't bring our true spirit forward. We start to hear how everyone else is doing or saying it. And then the next thing you know, everyone starts to sound the same. And so you start to tune out.
So confident, that's a big thing. If your inner soul or inner mind is in a calm state, it exudes confidence. How do you get a person to shake, oh my gosh, I'm going to be talking in front of X number of people, or better yet, senior management? That's always, there's a razor's edge. That'd be more fun, especially I remember going into a corporate meeting and the admin says to me, yeah, Bernie, don't joke with these guys. They're very, very serious. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what am I walking into? Are there blades? And it panned out. I kept to my status quo. I didn't ask them to pull my finger, but in the same stroke of it, I was extremely mindful going, trepidation. How do you get past that piece with somebody that can't shake it? In other words, oh dear, here we go. How do you help them jump out of that plane with a parachute on?
Well, I think it goes back to mindset, and also goes to, and I mean this with love, but it's not about you. It's about your audience. It's about how you're going to share your value with that audience. Also, you're there for a reason. Like, it doesn't matter who you're in front of. You did something, you took steps to get into that space. And so you need to celebrate that, and you need to own that space. Quite often, for one reason or another, we second guess ourselves. We put other people in these positions unnecessarily. I can't tell you how many times people have said the same thing to me, Bernie. Oh, these are very serious people. And I walk in the room and I'm like, that's it. This is it. Like, you all made this sound like this is going to be the most intimidating group of suits I've ever been around. And really, oftentimes, people just want permission to just be real. So if you can come into a room and just allow everyone to breathe together, you're going to be fine.
Have you ever found that someone has done a presentation, they're doing a really good job, and then they realize they picked the wrong audience, either for what they have to deliver? Has anybody ever, because right now we're gearing everything up for the audience. Has anybody gone, and they might have done a really good presentation, but has anybody ever gone going, you know what, this is not so much tribe or my right group. I should be looking for something else. Not career change, but shift gears. It's not resonating for whatever reason.
Yeah, I feel like that can happen even with the right audience. It's just the way that you're delivering the message, perhaps, if that makes sense. I have had situations myself where I thought the audience was one thing and it was another. The more you speak, the more you get out there, the more clear you will get about who your audience is. And sometimes that's going to just be a little bit of a learning experience, right? Now, I will give this suggestion, which has happened to me in the past too. Sometimes I want the communication to be clear. That clarity is kindness, but sometimes it's not as clear as you would like it to be. And next thing you know, there you are in front of an audience and you're like, I don't really know them well enough. I've tried to cater content towards an audience that I'm not really sure who's showing up. So I have built in a way to hook my audience and learn something about them at the top of my talk. For example, I might ask them an open-ended question. What brought you to this particular presentation today? What is your biggest fear or pain point as a public speaker? I get to hear from them and learn from them in real time. Then I'm able to adapt my structure based off of what I've heard from that particular audience.
So tell me about unscripted retreat and how it helps leaders.
Unscripted Retreat is in collaboration with Jamar Jones of Forever Media. He's a brand expert who helps people with their personal brands. The two of us are collaborating and we're doing a weekend in Denver, Colorado from the 16th to the 19th. We have 6-figure, 7-figure entrepreneurs and leaders coming to up their brand. It's all going to be about content creation and then how to use that content creation to market yourself. And then, of course, we're going to be doing improv so that we're getting a little bit comfortably uncomfortable. And that is going to lead into what I'm calling 3-minute lightning talks that are going to be, they're going to be filmed. And there's also going to be a photographer there. And those lightning talks are built to get outside of your comfort zone. So people will come with a topic and then I give them what I'm calling a recipe, which is going to have ingredients that you're going to incorporate into that 3-minute talk that are not going to be conventional to most speakers.
So, for foundational components of public speaking or presentation, is public speaking and presentation one and the same?
Well, public speaking, I feel we're doing all the time. Whether you're at a network party, on a podcast, or you're doing social media, you're doing on-camera work, we are speaking all the time. A meeting, a conference room, a boardroom, and those skills are incredibly important. Being able to insert your voice in a new way, or you have an idea that you want to share, being able to communicate effectively is a skill that is definitely going to get you on the right career path. Presentation is, for me, it's more of a way of how are you going to move people to action, whether that be to adopt a new product or service or to take action in their own lives. The way that you present and engage with people is another way to be persuasive.
How can you be vulnerable when you're public speaking and still maintain control?
That's a great question. I feel that the stories you choose to tell should be stories that are healed so that you're not speaking from an open wound. It's not to say that emotion won't come up, but what we don't want to do is re-traumatize. You don't want to re-traumatize yourself through sharing a story with an audience too soon. And you also don't really want to make your audience uncomfortable. What I mean by that is that they're having to hold your feelings for you. Okay. So it's okay to make an audience uncomfortable, be a little bit edgy, but you don't want them to be responsible for your feelings. Make sure that is coming from a place of healing. And then it's okay to show some vulnerability on stage. It really is. It's okay. Take a breath if you need to, because sometimes emotions can come up unexpectedly. It's okay to tell your audience and be transparent with them. Like, I didn't know where that just came from, but thanks for being here with me. Just be real with them. Don't try to mask it. I think that's when it makes it more difficult to bounce back.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome is a real thing. I feel like the best thing you can do is you just have to keep showing up and you have to keep telling yourself, I deserve to be here. And the more you do that and the more you own your right and own that space, that will start to dissipate. And Imposter syndrome's it's one of those really funny things too, just like nerves. Sometimes it pops up in the most unexpected moments.
I had someone who's talking, all of a sudden word salad's coming up because even doing the podcast recordings that we've done in the past, all of a sudden I go to say something and I've jammed up my words. Anyway, oh my gosh. And I know we're recording and I can edit them out. But when you're live on stage, if you hit a faux pas, and not you've just said something really antagonistic, but let's say you just had a faux pas, how do you recover from that?
I would say pause, breathe. If you're able to be self-deprecating in the moment, be self-deprecating in the moment. We're all human, and that's what's so beautiful about it. I feel that what happens is people put so much stress on themselves and they try to be so perfect that when those moments happen, people tend to be so hard on themselves that it's almost like they black out. So rather than doing that, breathe, laugh about it, but give yourself grace.
So the next element in here, I've seen comedians do this, the stand-up comedians, improv, and they'll have a series of lines, and obviously they'll gauge it based on what's happening in the audience. Do you encourage then interaction with the audience? Like, especially if you're going to have a long set or a long episode, getting them to participate, does that help keep them engaged? Is that another method of keeping the flow going?
I'm going to get on my soapbox.
Oh, no.
It's very big. I feel like gone are the days of the traditional formal presentation where someone is just talking at you. Presentations these days need to be more interactive and engaging, and there's a couple of reasons why. One is because our attention spans are shorter. We are competing with alerts in our pockets. The other piece of it is that we are aware that there are different learners in our audience. Not everybody is hearing things and seeing things in the same way. So you have to be mindful of that. So you have to find ways that you're going to engage with your audience. So it could be through questions, getting them to turn to each other and answer a question and learn about each other. It could be through written or visual or physical. But there are ways that we can be engaging our audience. We can be utilizing those tools in their pockets rather than just having them be distractions. I'm constantly encouraging my clients to find new ways. That's why this retreat I'm doing is so important, because I'm pushing people outside of their comfort zone of what they think a presentation is to what it could be.
How do you handle unexpected challenges like technical difficulties where someone pops up, not necessarily an insult, but there's pushback from an idea? How do you handle that?
I was hearing two questions in there. So technical issues and then pushback from audience members.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say for technical things, whether that be virtual or live, if your tech fails you, your deck is not working or the lighting, you don't dwell on it. That you're not standing up there saying, I'm so sorry, and you're wasting the audience's time by trying to troubleshoot the issue. Even if you have a tech team, an AV team that's there to help you, let them do it. You keep moving on with your content. So that's why you should be well practiced. That is why you should have a structure. You need to move on. We don't want to be there watching you fumble with your tech. The piece about the heckler or the person maybe in the Q&A who might be a bit challenging, the one thing I have noticed is that people just want to be acknowledged. This is where yes and comes in. You can repeat back perhaps partly what you heard. Even if you don't agree with it, you can just repeat back. It doesn't mean you're agreeing with them. It just means you're acknowledging them. And you can say, if this is important to you, let's discuss this after the talk. If it gets bad, you can invite them to remove themselves from the room. There's no shame in that. When I was doing improv, we would get hecklers, especially in Chicago by Wrigley Field. People would come in drunk after a game. And it was a perfect storm of improv comedy and drunk sports fans. We would get some pretty crass stuff. We just don't give them our energy. We turn to the person giving us positive energy, not the person trying to be the funny guy who goes blue right away.
Meredith, tell us about your book.
I was invited by Laura DeFranco, who has Brave Healers. It's a publishing company. She will invite collaborators to contribute to a book. And this one is about writing. She invited me to write a chapter about how to write your signature talk. It starts off with a personal story and a little bit of my journey, and then it gives you some practical tools for how to put that signature talk together. Other fabulous writers have contributed screenwriting, essay writing, writing your first book, and so forth. I'm excited for that to come out on May 20th. If you happen to be on Amazon, take a peek. The title of book is Writing the Brave Healer's Guide for World Changers. And I really hope that you'll buy the digital book.
Where do you see, especially the advent of short communications, like you have the Instagrams, you have the TikToks, and each of the mediums have their own length of time. You have to get the message out, be entertaining. There's a visual attached to it. There's a soundbite attached to it. Do you find that the rules of engagement for presentations, et cetera, fall still into that space, but you have to be aware of the medium and the constraints by the medium? Do you put in a slight tune to help set the tone?
Present on social media or both.
All the above.
First of all, break rules. 2, have a hook. Hook your audience. We don't need to hear your salutations. If you're scrolling through TikTok or Instagram and you hear someone say, "Hi, my name is Meredith Grundei. I'm a public speaking," you're going to be swiped through. So you might as well, like on a presentation, you better be hooking your audience, getting them leaning in right away. It could be a question, a quote, a statistic, a story, a dynamic visual, or a prop. But get your audience leaning in first. Then you can share who you are for the credibility piece by sharing who you are and then a few bullet points about who you are rather than going into your full CV. We don't need that. Then you need to get to addressing the problem. Your audience came because there's a problem. They have a pain point. You are the solution to that problem. So get to the point. Too many people waste a lot of time. And that's the same thing. And then also going back to authenticity, the reason why some people do really well on social media is because they're not afraid. They're just not afraid to show who they are, how they believe, their point of view. When you have a really strong point of view, especially if it's a contrarian point of view, people love that. So don't be afraid. We talk about authenticity, but there's a lot of fear. I work on that daily. Just tell them how you really feel. And it could sound messy, and that's okay.
If you had a way to distill your last 10 years into 2 sentences, what is a piece of advice you can give to a business owner?
Trust. You got to trust the process. You got to keep moving forward and trust. If you're putting things into action and you keep showing up and you keep networking and you keep questioning and implementing and staying curious with a healthy dose of trust, you're going to do well.
Meredith, if this resonated and they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get you, and how big is your geography? Who do you serve? Where do you serve?
So I serve quite a few people, but I would say conscious entrepreneurs who are looking to do things differently. I like to call them the visionaries and the misfits. And I work with organizations mostly in tech and finance because I really enjoy helping people take complicated ideas and simplify them and find ways to engage with their audiences differently. You can find me on meredithgrundei.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. And I have quite the following on TikTok where I'm giving away lots of tips.
Meredith Grundei, thank you so much. And Wayne Pratt, my co-host, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. Meredith has co-authored a book called Writing the Brave Healer's Guide for World Changers, launching May 20th, and The Unscripted Retreat, October 16th, 19th in Denver, Colorado. And you know what? She's got Second City training underneath her belt, and she can get you there too. Not necessarily for Second City, but she can get you tuned in so you can actually give that presentation or that chat, the communication style, down smooth.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATISIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motivate-u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter u.ca, or his website, motivate-u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert. Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host. Jovan Strika from At Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space. Then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner. and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer. Please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.